Your host for this session is Linda Franklin Biggs. Linda helps parents of neurotypical and special needs newborns navigate into their role as their baby's first teacher. Welcome your super host, Linda.
Well, welcome. We are here with Simone Fortier, and she is going to be talking on reviving the mind, navigating ADHD, concussion recovery. And Simone is the founder of the Fascia Brain Treatment Training Institute, internationally recognized pain management expert, ADHD expert, neurotransmitter, and concussion recovery expert. She is breaking barriers and soaring across boundaries in her multidimensional approach to healing pain and balancing the brain. Simone, we're so thrilled to have you here today. How did you discover this program? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And just being here to support parents is a wonderful, wonderful cause because it all starts in the family. So how I created this was really because I suffered 6 major head injuries as an adult. And I had over probably 50 falls and probably about 20 sports concussions as a child, all non-treated. And only from my last really head injury where I went to the Brain Injury Institute did they diagnose me with ADHD, which I knew my entire life. And I have the hyper kind. So there's about 10 different types of ADD, ADHD. And I have more the traditional type of the hyperactivity or switched on or switched off. And so from that, what happened, this is also a pain management expert part, is that I had a lot of nerve damage. I was deaf for 2 years, and I didn't know right from left. So coming from that place, trying to do my work and supporting other people, it was really difficult. And there was just no solution. I have access to the best sports med people in the world, and everyone had one piece, but they had no idea why I wasn't recovering. And so I went and started doing a lot of research. Who are the people that don't recover? Because parents out there, this is really important that 80% of kids who have concussion or head injury recover within 4 weeks. So 80%. So yes, your child can still do sports. I just want to say too that actually the number one cause of concussion is falls and motor vehicle accidents, so not necessarily sport related. So again, sports is really good for the mental capacity of the child, socializing. But it does cause head injury. But I kept researching. I'm going, okay, why am I not recovering? Because people are saying, no, you're malingering, it's all in your head. And it was in my head, but not in the way that they thought. It was in the neurotransmitters. So I'll go into that in a second. But I was like, why am I different? And I knew I was always different. ADHD people are unique. Their brains are actually physically a different size, and they have different abilities. They're very creative, and they're the best of the best in the world in sports. So all the Navy SEALs have ADHD, all the best performing athletes, but they're the ones that don't recover. And so I'm like, why is that? And so I kept doing research and really discovered from reading thousands of papers, and no one really put it together, is that they lack the resources to heal. So the first step was to really take the brain out of fight or flight, because oftentimes ADHD kids and parents, it is genetic, are living in that heightened state because they're born deficient in 5 nutrients. So those 5 nutrients, they're already behind. So at age 7 and 8, that's when it starts presenting. They don't have the resources when they go through hormonal change as they start to really grow and develop. And it affects cognitive abilities. So I'm like, okay, what are those resources? And started looking at that. And I partnered with a medical doctor to create actually a test which determines what neurotransmitter, which tells which food the person is lacking. So I've been doing this research now for 6 years. I've been teaching this for about 10 years because I developed a manual treatment for people with concussion. So I put it together. But it's really looking at what is not working in the brain. If you're already deficient at birth, you have an injury, then there's just not the resources to heal. So I started doing it with myself. And as you can tell, I can now talk, whereas for a word, even accessing certain words, I wasn't able to do that. And I lost my ability to spell. And I was in the middle of writing a book, and I just couldn't even, like, Grammarly and all the spell checks, could not even figure it out. So I'm like, I have to do something for myself. I was drowning. And ADHD people, because I am ADHD, it transformed really into working with kids and families, because they're often dismissed. They've even gone to clinics like Dr. Amen, specialized concussion clinics, and they haven't come away better. So they come to me kind of almost as a last resort, and gratefully so. I just want to share a story. I had a 15-year-old boy who was a high-performing athlete, skier, had an injury. He broke his back. He did still have the ability to walk and whatnot, but it changed his life. It changed his identity, because he was the best in really his age group in the world. And so he stopped skiing. He was a good student before that, actually stopped skiing, lost his identity as a skier, and then started to fail in school. And his grades went down. He went and turned to drugs, self-medicating, trying to calm his brain down, trying to heal. And his parents brought him to me for kind of pain management, and it transitioned into the brain nutrition program and the ADHD consulting with me. And his parents said, as parents can sometimes do, they're like, he's lying to you. He's not going to do what you're saying. And I said, well, I have ADHD. I really understand his languaging. And I think I really believe in his ability to change. So fast forward now, he was accepted into business college, and he has read and done every book that I recommended. He is now prospering, and his parents are very grateful, but they were used to the manipulative behavior, so they didn't really have the faith, but they supported him doing the program with me, which was super awesome. And now they're just like so ecstatic that he is now a top performing student. He organically stopped doing the self-medication because his brain was calmed down. He no longer needed to do that. So it helped with also two addictive behaviors. So that, I think, is like just a wonderful success story. But all my kids, that seems to be when they do the program, that's the result. So it's very rewarding for me, but it's rewarding too for the family. Yeah.
Well, nutrition seems to play such an important part in this whole equation. You know, who benefits from ADHD and the brain nutrition program? I mean, how can this revive the mind?
Well, I know, because there's been several talks on nutrition during this summit itself, but also generally. And so again, the ADHD brain is born deficient in certain nutrients, but they're also, what I found when I'm working with the athletes and the non-athletes with concussion, they're hypersensitive to fillers. They're hypersensitive to preservatives. And they're also hypersensitive, as we know, to sugars. And what's happening now is, and it seems to be an epidemic, they're like, oh my gosh, more people have ADHD than ever before. But true ADHD, actually, like I said, the brain is a different size, but that doesn't reflect in cognitive ability. They're actually very brilliant. And so I always say ADHD is a superpower, because if you want to get something done, actually get an ADHD person who can hyper focus, get it done, and they do. But it's like our food has changed. And that's particularly in North America. And then when a lot of stressors come in and kids and families don't have the resources to really calm their brain down. So I'm going to talk a little technical here, because my program deals really with the neurotransmitters, which is kind of precursor to other programs. It's like, let's feed the neurotransmitter, get the brain out of fight or flight, so then all these other programs can start to work. But if you're running from the bear, the only thing that you're focused on doing is surviving. So digestion actually even is secondary to survival. So when you're eating, even if you are eating optimal foods, you may not be absorbing them because you're in that state of fight or flight. And that can come from lockdown, can come from head injury, can come from trauma, physical abuse, mental, emotional, self-talk. ADHD people also do that to themselves too, state and anxiety, because we're looking at neurotransmitters, but most traditional people look at dopamine deficiency. I'm looking at GABA. GABA is the one neurotransmitter that actually downregulates the brain, and one of the only major ones that switches the brain off. And so with ADHD, they're lacking the nutrient that actually helps get that GABA into the brain to relax the brain. So I'm looking at the precursor to actually food. And it's like with my program, it's like food in a pill, high dosages of what they need to actually start to get their brain out of fight or flight. Then they can actually digest and absorb the food that they're eating. But remember, ADHD people are born deficient, so they'll always need a higher amount of, let's say, magnesium is one. They're often deficient in magnesium, also iron and omegas. They have a hard time digesting fats, because this is a really kind of cool thing for parents too, is that 85% of ADHD people are hypermobile. So hypermobility is that laxity in the joints, but it also is those people who can do those party tricks where their thumb goes all the way back and, they can lift their leg over their head. So there's again, 1,000 layers of hypermobility. But what that does, people don't realize, is that affects your ability in your gut to contract. Because not only are your joints flexible, but also the vascular system, all the arteries, all of that is flexible as well. So in order to contract, it takes a lot more movement. So ADHD people have to move more, or you physically have to move the digestive system for those that are extremely hypermobile. So again, as babies, they present as colicky, also too very fussy. They can be either very fast or slow eater, but they're not really digesting as much. So they might eat different foods, but they're also reaching to for sugar as a self-medication, right? To stimulate their brain. Also caffeine stimulates the brain, which then they can relax. So kind of they reach for things that aren't optimal, which actually makes their ADHD more worse. And but yeah, food choices. So we're looking at, I'm not a specialist in nutrition, but food has changed. And anything that really comes out of a plastic bag is not optimal for the ADHD person. It's not optimal for people in general.
Yeah, not for anyone, right?
Not for anyone. It's not real food. And the plastic actually seeps a synthetic estrogen into the food, which again changes people's hormones at early ages. So we're seeing ADHD symptoms, which usually always used to present at 7 or 8, are now coming on at 5 and 6. So again, it's also, they're not getting the right nutrients into their body to feed their brain. So again, yeah, nutrition is the key. And so looking for as much organic food as possible within the price range, also looking to make sure that the fillers aren't in the food choices. So with my program, I partnered with a medical grade supplement company to make sure that they knew where every fish swam, where everything grew. And I've tried, in the beginning when I was doing the research, I was just trying all sorts of different brands, and people were just going, go and eat this. And it didn't work because the dosages were different and they had fillers. And again, the ADHD people, just makes their brain actually worse. So yeah, food is key.
So how can parents work with this program?
Well, parents, actually, there's a simple way to do this. They can actually, with the free gift that they got, that is a test on your neurotyping, what's your brain doing, and your kind of your personality based on your neurotransmitters, which is kind of cool. That way, that's a start. But they can reach out and do the brain health assessment, which is up that way. And that's the full test. So that really determines what neurotransmitters, or if they're deficient in all of them, and really what's that affecting sleep, focus, memory, even defiance, overactivity. That tells me what's going on there. And then from that, I develop a program. And less is better when we're dealing with ADHD and concussion, but also too with the brain. We don't want to overstimulate, especially if they're in fight or flight. So we kind of go chunk everything back and down, because when you stimulate or overstimulate the nervous system, again, the brain goes back into fight or flight. It's not interested in healing. It's going back to running from the bear. And so with that analogy too, people are running from the bear and eventually they can't run anymore, so they stop and play dead. That is in a place where kids and actually parents can't even make a choice or a decision. So they can't decide what to make for dinner, but also too can't really make a choice of even what school to apply to or what should I study tonight. Their brain is just unable to do that. So they can do the brain health assessment, and then there's a choice to work with me directly or just receive the program. And for kids who are, I work with a lot of kids who are suicidal. And with them, I do suggest that the parents have them work with me on one-on-one consulting basis, because they need a lot of accountability. So one of the things that I want to leave parents with this tip is that ADHD kids, they are defiant, but in often cases, they're just unable. So a couple things that ADHD kids can't do is, one, fill out a form. That also transition to adulthood, and it takes them a long time. So even like applications, university applications, all that sort of thing, even taxes, is very difficult for them as children or adults. So they're just unable. But if that's not happening to you as a parent, you think the child is lazy. And they're not. They just need a little bit of a nudge and supervision, but in a loving way, not in a dictator way. And so I had a parent that I was working with, and she's like, my daughter, we fight every night because I ask her to go take a shower and she won't. And then I go upstairs and she's playing with stuff. And I said, well, all you really need to do is actually walk her to the shower. And
Simple.
so she started, it's that simple. It's like, oh, it's bringing them back to being present. And so walks her to the shower, gets her in the shower, and then away she goes. And that's as easy, and that helps resolve a lot of conflict. So I actually also too give all these tips to the parent on how to have the right languaging, the right approach, and also to not to take it personally, because their brain is just unable to do certain things and they just need a nudge. And once they actually do my program, it's interesting, they take over and then they can do all these things on their own and they don't need that supervision. But I have 40-year-olds who are being supervised by their 65-year-old parents because they are unable to do the program, which is so simple. But until they get the resources in their head, then they can actually start to move forward and do it themselves.
So if they were to follow your brain nutrition program, someone who is not independent can become independent, is what you're saying?
Yes.
I see we have a question in the chat. Somebody is asking, what company did you partner with? Love your message about foods.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you, Philip. I partnered with Designs for Health, and it actually was traditionally used. You can get it through me or through other medical practitioners. It's not something that you can just purchase off the shelf. And they also have a sports line for professional athletes and Olympic athletes. So that's even a testament to saying, yes, the quality is really high. And the requirements for that supplementation in the Olympics athletes and professional athletes, they have to test and retest to make sure that it's a high quality grade and it doesn't have anything in there that would be not in the guidelines for the sport. So yeah, you can definitely look at my website. I have the supplements on there and you can order it directly through me. But with the brain nutrition program, I'm like, you don't want to take too much of stuff that's not working. Let's find out exactly what your brain needs, because a lot of people are taking tons of supplements and they may or may not be working. They don't know if they need them. So I like to know exactly, the test tells me exactly what people need. And again, if your body's not absorbing it, then don't take it. So that's kind of my approach to that. Less is better.
Uh-huh. What are
Mhm.
some of the challenges you hear about, and maybe you have some tips for our listeners?
Well, the biggest tip is having patience and knowing that ADHD kids, again, are unable to do certain things. They just need that support. And another tip would be, again, starting to transition the ADHD child to bed, which means shutting off all Wi-Fi, which is very hard for households, but shutting that Wi-Fi off at night, because what it does, like the cell phone, it searches for the mothership all night. So it's like searching for that cell tower. And the ADHD brain is super hyper aware of those frequencies that it actually interrupts the sleep. So they're waking up. And so again, that is a really, really important one, is to actually shut off all Wi-Fi in your house. And so your sleep quality will go up, but transitioning an hour before bed to actually start calming the brain down. So creating a strategy. ADHD people need a routine and a strategy for success. And that's just like systems always work for ADHD people.
I see some more questions that people have for you, and someone writes in the chat, what supplements do you recommend? What kind of fish oil do you recommend, and at what doses?
Okay, so with the omegas, it depends. So people with concussion, it's a different type of omegas. And I don't do dosing until I see really the results from the brain health assessment. That's how important it is. And also too, when we're working with children, we look at the weight of the person. And so we can determine the dosage, and the omegas are one component, and they may not be deficient in it. So with the test, how it works is you do the test, we create a program, then you retake the test in 6 weeks to 2 months, see the results, and it does work. But within the first week of starting the supplements, there's a check-in to see, is the sleep improved? Because with children and with ADHD adults, the results should be within 2 to 3 days. So if it's not, then we change the dosage, particularly for that person. So again, we look at weight, as well as the results of the brain health assessment before I talk about dosing, because each person and each brain is different. So I've done like 3,500 people have done the test, and not one person has had the same number. So it's really cool to see that we are all unique, and the numbers are different. So your nutritional needs are different than someone else's. So again, I don't do generic dosing for people. And since I just see who you are in the chat, I don't know what you need. But great questions, because yes, the omegas, each omega is different. And the one I use for concussion is different as well. Yeah.
Your topic is so interesting. And you know what? I understand you have a gift for all of our listeners. So everyone who has signed up to come to our Health, Wealth, and Wisdom can get your neurotype quiz. And for those who upgraded to the VIP, you're offering a webinar, which is wonderful, how to get things done webinar. But Simone, do you have any last words?
No, I'm just grateful for being here. Thank you so much. And yeah, just a wonderful opportunity to support parents, understand that sometimes the kids are just unable.
Thank you so much, Simone.
Oh, you're welcome.